You reach behind the monitor and push the cable in. The picture snaps on. Perfect. Pull it halfway out, sparkles, or nothing. Never a fuzzy picture. Because that cable isn't carrying ones and zeros. It's carrying a smeared, noisy analog voltage, and the chip at the far end throws most of it away on purpose. An old TV faded to snow as its signal weakened. Yours can't. That's the whole reason nothing digital is ever a little bit wrong. Take one real chip, a logic gate that costs pennies. It runs on 3.3 volts. Ask it what a zero is, and the datasheet refuses to give you a number. It gives you a ceiling. Anything at or below 0.8 of a volt is a zero, and a 1, anything at or above 2 volts, which leaves 1.2 volts in the middle, belonging to nothing. Park a signal in there, and the chip promises you nothing. Not a 0, not a 1. And that isn't sloppiness. That empty band is the most useful thing on the wire. Look at what the sender has to do. To send a 1, it isn't allowed to just reach 2 volts. It's required to drive the line all the way to 2.4. To send a 0, it has to haul it down to 0.4. So the sender promises 2.4. The receiver accepts anything above 2. 0.4 of a volt of daylight between them. Same story at the bottom. Sender goes down to 0.4. Receiver forgives anything up to 8. 0.4 again. That's the deal on every wire in the machine. A bit can be beaten up by 0.4 of a volt on the way down and still arrive perfect. Notice what did not happen. Nothing measured that damage. Nothing corrected it. The receiver sorted the voltage into a bucket and then drove its own output to a fresh, full 2.4 volts. The noise wasn't fixed. It was thrown out along with the precision. Photocopy a page. Then photocopy the copy. Do that 1,000 times and you have gray mush. Every generation inherits the last one's dirt. That's generation loss, and it's the law for anything analog. A cassette, a film print. Do it digitally 1 billion times, and copy 1 billion is identical to the original, because nothing ever copies the page. Every step rereads the letters and types them out clean. Which raises an obvious question. If a wider gap is better armor, why stop at 2? You only have 3.3 volts to spend. Split it in 2, and each state owns a huge stretch of it with that fat gap sitting between them. Split it into 10 levels, and each one gets about 1/3 of a volt, and the space between neighbors thins to a sliver. Noise a 2-state wire wouldn't even notice now pushes a level into the one next door. Every extra level you squeeze in, you pay for out of the armor. And this argument is old. In 1946, in the paper that laid out the modern computer, von Neumann and his colleagues wrote down the reason. They would not try to measure gradations of charge. They were content to distinguish 2 states. 0.4 of a volt is generous when you're a few million flips a second crossing a millimeter of silicon. Your monitor cable is a different planet. A top-spec HDMI cable is rated for 48 gigabits a second. Billions of transitions, each only a few hundred millivolts tall, sent down meters of copper. And copper drinks your signal as it goes. Every connector is a bump in the road that throws part of the wave back at the sender, and the echo lands on the bit behind it. A cheap cable, a long run, a plug sitting half-seated, Each one takes a bite, and that margin is a fixed budget. Nothing tops it back up. Spend it all, and there is nothing gentler waiting underneath. Classic HDMI has no error correction to fall back on for the picture. A bit that lands on the wrong side of a line is simply a wrong pixel. That is your sparkle. And the errors do not arrive gradually. Across almost the entire range, there are none at all. The picture is flawless. Then, over a change in signal so small you would need an oscilloscope to see it, the error rate goes vertical. Sync collapses. Black. Engineers have a name for that shape. They call it the cliff. So go back to your hand behind the monitor. You aren't making the picture better. You can't. There is no better. There is over the cliff and under it. What you're doing is handing back a fraction of a volt, seating the plug, flattening that bump, giving the wave a cleaner run, so the ones still land above the line and the zeros still land below it. The picture doesn't improve. It returns, whole, instantly, exactly as it was, because it was never partly there. Every digital thing you own is an analog mess underneath, holding a gap open. You only ever see the gap on the day it closes.
Everything you just figured out rests on something deeper, and that's the next video, so start there. Would you rather understand your computer than just use it? Then subscribe, and I'll see you next time, further down the stack.